All right. We got real world with dog enjoying dog jet play while we take on the clown world with what's going on today. This makes it easier for us to take the bull crap when we're looking at relaxing puppies. So enjoy.
So why did we make the bearskin hoodie with 6 secure zip pockets?
There's a little humor to start it off.
So with that, we just go to our mantra. We ain't going back. We are not, I guess I should correct my language.
We ain't going back.
Going back. Is that right? We're not going back. Thank you all very much. We ain't going back.
We ain't going back. She's pandering.
I guess I should correct my language.
That's her pandering to the left. Right there was a little humor. The drinker of the house.
Well, police say a good Samaritan with a handgun saved lives after a deadly mall shooting.
Oh, they're gonna arrest him.
Here's what happened. A gunman opened fire inside a mall food court in Indiana on Sunday, killing 3 people and injuring 2 others. A 22-year-old man who was legally carrying shot and killed that gunman.
Good.
Shook, I'm fucking shook. All I gotta say is, hey man, nice shot.
They're mad
Good
that he
guy
had a
with
gun
the gun. Puts down
at the mall.
a bad guy with
They're
the gun
mad
over
that
here
he
at
killed the
Greenwood Park
shooter.
Mall. You just saw this yesterday where you had a mass shooter in a food court shooting people, killing people, and he got put down by a good Samaritan with a concealed pistol. Blammo. Hey man, very nicely done. I'm sure everybody's stoked about this. Everybody,
No.
oh wait, of course not. Of
They
course
want
not.
him in
Angry
prison.
lefties, gerbils up their asses, and
They want
AIDS
him
in the
arrested.
reins. Of course, they're
For carrying a
upset
gun
about
in
this.
a mall. How dare
Not
him?
mad at the dude who was
Guns
shooting
are
people.
dangerous.
Well, they're mad at the dude who put down the guy who was shooting people. Take a look at this. I
Clown
gotta get
world.
I ain't going anywhere near Reddit. Reddit is full of kid fuckers and AIDS dispensers, and I don't want none of that energy, so thank you, user 20461 on Patreon.web for putting this. Good find. This is Reddit. It says, not a good guy if it was a gun-free zone. Trying to figure it out if it was. In between doing reviews for single-use rainbow-flavored dildos, this person's going to crack the code on this mall's policy, and oh, here comes Marin. It was. Greenwood Mall does not allow guns at all. This good guy was not a good guy. You're right, everybody. No firearms or illegal weapons. He wasn't a good Samaritan, but somebody who breaks the rules. Holy fuck, you dumb idiots. Those signs don't work. The no guns is allowed sign didn't stop the dude who was shooting everybody in the food court. Hey. Outside Ford's Theater, you'd still be alive right now if you put signs up that said no guns is allowed and no angry libtard washed up actors. It's food for thought, brother. Anyhow, this is dumb. This is dumb. This is who they're mad at. And again, it's not just the AIDS individuals on Reddit, it's of course the left wing. Gun control advocates stunned man who allegedly shot Indiana mall shooter labeled good Samaritan. He was not a good Samaritan. I love when angry lefties who hate the Bible use Bible references and stories from the Bible, throw it in the direction of religious people to try to show them down. You're dumb. You're dumb assholes. You're dumb idiots. Well, a good Samaritan saves somebody like a good Samaritan doesn't kill it. Somebody who calls himself a comedian, by the way. They tweet that out. Oh man, the good Samaritan did not shoot anyone. Jesus was not a fan of killing anyone for any reason, including for self-defense, but these ammo-sexuals have never read the Bible. They couldn't support the GOP or the NRA if they did. This is a fucking comedian, John Fugelsucker over here? What a weird name, by the way, bro. First of all, that's all wrong. Jesus was all about whooping ass. That's just, he'll flip tables, idiots. No, of course not. And this was a good Samaritan. As this lunatic was shooting up a mall, the good Samaritan shot him, thus saving the lives of multiple people. You dumb idiots. Oh man, amosexuals, by the way. Why do you idiots keep insisting on selling us merchandise. I'm going to take that, I'm going to put that on cups, I'm going to sell that. Ammo sexual. You dumb fucker, you took two things that we love on our site, ammo and sex, and you're trying to denigrate us with that. That's dumb. That's as dumb as Ultra MAGA. You fucking idiots. Again, these are not legitimate people. They're not upset at this situation at a face value position. They're upset that what happened here was their narrative was destroyed. Right? Again, their position is so ass, they have to take the side again of criminals because that's all their policies are doing. It's creating more and more criminality. And so instead of ignoring it, because nobody can ignore it now because that's such an insane level, Spinal Tap 11 if you will, they sit there and go, well, oh my God, I can't believe that they killed him. Yeah, of course. What is the situation that you want us to put into place? So you want more signs? Maybe there just needs to be more signs around the mall that says no guns. Maybe that'll work, right, you dumb fuckers? Because it works so well here. Oh, maybe what we should do is when there's a mass shooter, we should all wait for the white supremacist, systematically racist cops who kill black people with impunity. Maybe we should wait for them to show up with guns. Is that the cops that you want defunded? Are you listening to yourselves, you fucking idiots? None of what you're saying makes any sense, which is why they're so upset with this situation. Because what we said makes total sense. The only way you stop a mass shooter is you shoot them in their face as soon as possible. You don't Uvalde the situation. Mass shooter popping off, an armed civilian who wasn't shooting people with his gun decides to pull his gun out and use it for self-defense. You're going to be mad at that? You can't be mad at that. You can't be a logical human being who's sane and be mad at it. You have to be a shitberg, left-wing ideological nutbag who needs their agenda of disarming civilians. That's the only people who can be mad about this. That's what's going on here. These people on Reddit, these fuckers at Mom Begins Guns or some stupid shit like this, they're upset that their narrative was destroyed. Again, another situation. I had a video the other day where all these homeowners are shooting these criminals. All of them. The only person who's going to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. That narrative was just shown right here, and so they got to shit on it. They got to try to shut it down. You're never going to get a situation where the criminals are all disarmed. The criminals don't follow the rules. They don't follow the law. They're criminals, you idiots. No amount of signs and stupid fucking empty platitudes are going to stop criminals from doing criminality. Your rhetoric of disarming people is only going to fall upon law-abiding citizens who know that Democrats are shitbags, and that's why you guys are pushing this. That's why you're attacking the dude who saved all of these people because he hurt your narrative, and your agenda is to disarm law-abiding citizens so you can then put us all in a situation where we're shot at in food malls. Go fuck yourself. Everybody sees what's going on over here. But there you have it, my friends. A good guy with a gun stops a bad guy with a gun, and the Democrats side with the bad guy and attack the good guy because they're aides. All right, thank you so much for watching the video. Support genuinely kept up to date on how awesome the Second Amendment is. Hit that subscribe button and make way, because the salt must flow.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining me for today's talk. There's an urgent situation unfolding in America, and today I'll unveil all the unnerving details. So let's get started with a critical question. Where were you on March 9th, 2022, when President Biden signed the death warrant on American freedom? On that day, in a hush ceremony at the White House, without the approval of Congress, the states, or the American people, Biden signed into law Executive Order 14067. Buried in his order are a few paragraphs titled Section 4. The language in Section 4 makes Order 14067 the most treacherous act by a sitting president in the history of our republic. Because Section 4 sets the stage for legal government surveillance of all U.S. citizens, total control over your bank accounts and purchases, and the ability to silence all dissenting voices for good. In this new war on freedom, the Dems aren't coming for your guns. No, they're thinking much bigger than that. They're coming for your money. And it's already started. Hi, my name is Jim Rickards. I'm a former advisor to the Pentagon, the White House, Congress, the CIA, and the Department of Defense. I'm also an attorney, investment banker, and author of 7 books on currencies and international economics. When places like Fox, CNBC, or Bloomberg want to know what's about to shake up the global economy, they call me. Most of all, like you, I'm a proud American patriot. The disturbing predictions you're about to see are based on my independent research and my contacts in the intelligence community. I've never made this kind of public announcement before, but it's my duty to pull the alarm. This is what I believe Section 4 of Biden's order means for all Americans. The US dollar will be made obsolete. Soon your cash will be confiscated or will simply be worthless paper. The cash currency we have now will be replaced with a new programmable digital token. But the truth is, few outside the deep state recognize Biden's move for what it really is. If my predictions are correct, this is so much more sinister than simply replacing the cash dollar with a new digitized version. Friend, this new currency will allow for total control of all American citizens, because every digital dollar will be programmed by the government. That means they will be able to turn on or turn off your money at will. Not only that, but they'll be able to track and record every purchase you make. This is very different than online banking. It has nothing to do with crypto. I'll explain everything in a moment.
California is a perfect place, a true golden state. People across the world come to Los Angeles, renowned for its beautiful coastline. From Hollywood to Venice to Silver Lake to Koreatown. The best weather, the most creative people, a place to raise our families. And yet the Los Angeles we know is dying right before our eyes. We have this Achilles heel, homelessness. Just as famous now as the Hollywood sign in the hills. The city we love, now a national laughing stock. A division of haves and have-nots, the wealthiest homes in the entire country. And just blocks away, people under bridges, in tents, drug addicted, unable to care for themselves. Parents, children, lifelong workers, teachers, veterans. It's a national tragedy, our tragedy, and it's got to stop.
What's life like homeless? It's hard. I'd rather be indoors. It's hard. And once you get in this situation, it's harder to get out of it.
I've been out here for 5 years. You know, it's rough.
I've been homeless here for 6 years.
I learned how to dumpster dive for food, originally over on Venice Beach when I was 12 years old.
I just want to be treated normal. That's it.
Homelessness is by far the single biggest issue in Los Angeles right now. This issue has now been embedded as part of the LA brand, where in the ways that we think about Los Angeles as being a place with sunshine and traffic, that homelessness is now one of the parts of living here regardless of where you live.
It is everywhere. Homelessness in LA is everywhere. There's not a neighborhood that hasn't seen it. There's not an overpass that doesn't have it. There's not a park that hasn't experienced it. It's everywhere.
The situation is more urgent than ever before. The problem has grown to be visible in every single neighborhood in Los Angeles.
It's near our schools, near our work, near our parks. It really affects everybody.
We've all seen homeless in our neighborhoods, onto the freeways, in downtown Los Angeles, right outside City Hall, which continues to astonish me that our elected leaders can walk downstairs to the street outside their offices and see people in tents, and they've been there for years and they're still there.
Homelessness in LA, after the 37 years that I've been directly involved with it, is worse now than ever before. After billions, literally billions of dollars spent just locally via the well-meaning social services, homelessness has increased in numbers, in complexities.
homeless count is an imperfect science, and it gives us kind of a baseline to work off of. I believe there probably are more individuals that are on our streets that are invisible because they don't want to be seen.
You feel safe up here?
No. You never feel safe. You never. So I said the sleep with one eye open.
It's in pretty dire straits. Unfortunately, Los Angeles is one of those cases where we're seeing our rates increase at a level that's more than any other metropolitan area.
It is a humanitarian crisis when you're allowing people to sleep on the sidewalk. It's just not humane.
Imagine being haunted by homelessness and living in LA, where we are the capital of homelessness, and we have 70,000 people suffering on the streets. I'm more heartbroken than mad, more going to bed at night knowing that we're losing 4.5 precious human beings, our most valuable resource, every day to complications of homelessness.
Year upon year, the number of people who die every day on our streets gets worse. It is unconscionable, it is an emergency, and it's a humanitarian disaster. This mushroomed into an epidemic, and it has reached crisis levels because now the homeless encampments are encroaching and destroying the business community, the tourism industry, impacting the quality of life of our residential areas, contributing to the rise in violent crime and just overall misery, while the homeless are dying in record numbers. So we have the worst of everything possible is what we have today.
As a lifelong Angelino and someone who's born and raised in the Pasadena area, just even watching it in my own community, it makes me sick. That could be my sister, my brother, my mother, my father. And yet we all turn a blind eye. There was a time when if someone were laying on a street corner not moving, someone would call 911. Now you'll see people just walk by as though it's an everyday occurrence, because it is.
This is happening in America. We talk about how we're this shining example of democracy, and there's a human rights crisis happening right under our noses. Our fellow man is living in conditions equal to a third world poverty.
The people are very angry at living this way. This is no way to live. And it crosses every possible demographic. There is no partisan split on this whatsoever. If there is a guy defecating in your kid's park, nothing else matters than getting that guy out of the park.
It's a moral crisis. It is a public health crisis. We also know it is a public safety crisis. And by the way, it's an economic crisis as well, because it really calls into question for a lot of people whether LA is the place that they want to invest, whether it's the place that they want to book their vacation. And that is going to extract an economic toll. And by the way, if it extracts an economic toll, that also means we have less revenues to deal with these problems.
Who wants to be known for homelessness? But that's the reality. I mean, you talk to people who visit from out of town, they're stunned, shocked. I mean, that these conditions exist on the streets of the second largest city in the country. I really love living in Los Angeles, and I can't believe I'm looking back at 2015 with nostalgia. You know, when my wife and I could take a walk through anywhere, downtown LA, through Brentwood, and not have your head on a swivel looking around. I mean, yes, I want those days back. Most people pay a lot of money in taxes, a lot of money. This is not part of the deal. And then they try to lay this guilt, oh, you're not being compassionate, you're not. I only have an expletive in return for that.
I love this city. I have deep affection for her, and I love how beautiful it is. Does the blight and the trash and the garbage upset me? Sure it does. It worries me. It's not safe, but that's not my primary concern. My primary concern is what led to this problem? What led to it, and why is it being allowed to continue?
It's really hard, especially with not being able to get around very easily. That's my wheelchair right there. I need a new hip. So it's kind of taking its toll. Can't move around, so gain more weight. It's not easy. Most people don't understand that little things. Want to go use the bathroom somewhere and they don't let you. Doctors won't help. Do everything you can to avoid homelessness.
This isn't just a
point in time now that we are addressing. This has been a part of American society, a part of Los Angeles, a part of California since its very beginning. Los Angeles during that time period was a place where young white men would come to find work. You had single room occupancy hotels, you had bars, and so like the early Skid Row of Los Angeles is kind of the story of young downtown Los Angeles, of young people coming in, trying to find their way, and then moving on to their next location. Now, Skid Row becomes the Skid Row that we know of it in the 1940s and 1950s when that population begins to stay.
If you haven't been to the Skid Row area, it's horrifying. It's heartbreaking. An area of 50 plus blocks in downtown LA where the services were all in place there. The shelters were all in place.
So in the 1970s, you see this explosion of all of these services in these communities. And the communities responded by saying, we don't want these services in our communities. We want them somewhere else. And that somewhere else became Skid Row.
For a long time, the solution to homelessness was to contain it, as opposed to trying to come up with actual solutions. It was basically, if they're out of sight, out of mind kind of approach.
There was a very distinct border of who was in Skid Row and like where they were allowed to go. And so there was this buffer of Skid Row from the rest of downtown Los Angeles. Even like the street signs and the crosswalks were different. If you were in Skid Row compared to the other side of downtown LA, there were more police at the borders, etc.
And to think that that's an American city in the heart of Los Angeles, just blocks away from the finance capital of Los Angeles, you see this is horrific. And it's something that we should all as a nation be ashamed of, that we've allowed the policies to exist to create this sort of environment in the middle of our city.
We had a huge issue in the late 1990s, early 2000s, of other cities sending their homeless populations into Los Angeles. People being dropped off on a Greyhound with a one-way ticket, just dropped into the middle of Skid Row in the middle of the night, not knowing what to do.
When I was 18, I kind of like ran away from home. I was on Skid Row for a long time until like last year. And I say drugs and just struggling itself, gang members, you know, being bullied and stuff like that. Compared to Skid Row, this is actually paradise. I mean, yeah, the noise is pretty headache, but it's better than screams.
So the story of homelessness in Los Angeles is entirely interwoven into the story of Skid Row. And right now what we're seeing is Skid Row broke containment. We no longer can hide from it.
It just blew its containment, gone from Skid Row, or maybe part of the riverbeds in some places are out of sight, out of mind, and now it's everywhere, it's ubiquitous, and it is all preventable, and this lays squarely on the shoulders of our leadership.
Everybody's been able to point fingers at everybody else. The city points fingers at the county, the county points fingers at the city, we point fingers at the state, they point fingers at us. We gotta get beyond this.
Well, the city of LA created this problem. We're in the business of saving lives. Politicians, unfortunately, they're in the business of saving their reputations. And that's their first and foremost their concern, not the death and decay that's happening on the streets every day.
If I was an elected official in this city or county, I could not sleep at night knowing what's happening on the streets of my district.
I think you've had 4 decades of failure. And I think most politicians ran away from this. I won't take blame for homelessness. That is way beyond Eric Garcetti, and I'm very proud of the work that I've done as a council member and as mayor.
Eric Garcetti's trying to make the argument that homelessness is bigger than any one person and bigger than any one job, and as the mayor of Los Angeles, he can only do so much. That is, in some ways, true. This is not entirely his fault, and one person shouldn't be to blame. But as the mayor of Los Angeles, you're not exactly a casual observer.
I do as an Angelino, do in the same way that we all do, but we collectively, we said no to building more housing. We said we want to preserve the zoning the way it was, redlining years ago, the getting rid of mental health care system.
I think that is Garcetti's legacy, and it should be in the first line of his obituary. The man who allowed Los Angeles to become a cesspool.
I think the more finger pointing we do, the less work is being done, right? If we're sitting around blaming other people for what the problem is, we're not fixing the problem.
It's a moral crisis in our city.
Because of inequity in the system, because of injustice in the system, we have pushed the marginalized onto the streets. Because of an incredible rise in housing prices and the cost of living, we're pushing those at the bottom of our economic structure onto the streets.
In the late aughts, we saw the financial crisis. And when that occurred, we saw like a really big boom in the unhoused population. And so when you couple this economic crisis with now the pandemic and the lack of services and the lack of infrastructure that's been built within Los Angeles County, we're seeing levels that we have never seen before.
We've taken a completely wrong approach to just about everything in the way that we've addressed homelessness. Could we have done any worse, right? I mean, if we had intentionally tried to do worse.
Part of it is our policies when it comes to mental health, our policies when it comes to addiction, our policies when it comes to crime, our policies when it comes to trying to be compassionate, maybe that has backfired on us.
What we tend to forget when we address homelessness, we tend to forget homeless people did not drop down out the sky or grow up from the sidewalk. Homeless people came from our society.
I'm not a bum. You know what I mean? I've tried to work and everything like that, but because of my disability, I can't work. I want a house just like everybody else. I want a home.
A lot of people think that the face of homelessness is somebody that's drug addicted or mentally challenged because that's what they see in front of them on the street. But there are so many other people who are homeless who you don't see, either because they're in a shelter or because they're ashamed to ask for help.
I look at homelessness on a continuum. I look at it from being acute to chronic. Acute homelessness, you just lost your job, you lost your place to live, you're in a hotel. Chronic, you're out in the streets and you're talking to yourself, you're having delusions, things like that.
You know, these are all real people that have had lives, that have had jobs, that have had marriages, that have had divorces, they've had hard times. They're not there because that was their first choice. This is their last choice, but they've become used to it and it's the life that they can deal with. And maybe it's too painful to confront, you know, their families or their past problems. How did you get into homelessness originally?
My spouse passed away and we lost our condo in foreclosure.
They have personalities, they have lives, they have loves, and in many cases they have each other.
No story is the same. It could be a little old lady who's been
sorry
abandoned by her
playing
family.
this. I'm
Could
sorry,
be
I was
somebody
doing
who's gone
stuff.
through a brutal divorce.
I promise y'all, real world life. Alright, I'm gonna start the video over and give it to you straight.